Good morning and welcome to Press Corner here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Now, on Press Corner, our regular Sunday morning review of key events with our colleagues in the media and other experts here in the heart of Europe. We celebrate the privilege of a free press by listening to diverse opinions and letting our audience reach their own conclusion. Today, along with our guests, we are joined by Agnieszka Volk-Waniewska. She's a columnist with Nie magazine. Agaton Kozinski is also a columnist, and Dmitry Balkunets is a political scientist. So welcome all to Press Corner, and thank you very much for getting out of bed this early on a Sunday morning. I know it's not easy. So basically, I would like us to kick off talking about President Duda's visit to China. He went on the 23rd, or his meeting started on the 23rd of June and ended on the 26th. So he's back now in Poland. What do you think, Agnieszka, was the overriding impetus, motivation for the president's visit?
Well, I think President has less than a year, and he's trying to make some impact on international scene. And well, I'm not really finding President Duda the most mature of statesmen, so I've got a little mixed feeling.
Mm-hmm.
On one hand, I think it's great, and we should work with China and should respect China, and all this patronizing attitude toward China from collective West is terribly stupid. But on the other hand, when I'm listening to my president, president of my country, who's talking as he's working for a tour operator and saying, let's go to China, if you can afford it, let's go to China for holidays because it's a beautiful country, very, very many strange things. It's a little embarrassing. So I'm not really sure. Mixed feelings, I would say.
Well, I'll come to you gentlemen in just a second, but we have a short video clip that I'd like to share with you and our audience before we move on.
Duda first visited China in 2015, scheduling a state visit shortly after he was elected for his first term as president. He also traveled to Beijing in February 2022 for the Winter Olympics, taking the opportunity to meet with President Xi Jinping. On Monday, President Duda met with Chinese leaders, Chinese Premier Li Qiang and President Xi. In addition to confirming the will to deepen the cooperation between the two countries, the leaders' meeting resulted in a number of important decisions, including one that the Polish government has been seeking for some time.
President Xi Jinping declared that Poles will have visa-free travel to China. Anyone who wants to come to China for up to 15 days, i.e. primarily for tourists, economic or business purposes, will be able to come without a visa.
In total, the two presidents oversaw the signing of 5 agreements covering matters such as bilateral trade cooperation and quarantine requirements for Polish food exports, where China agreed to significant concessions.
During my state visit to Poland 8 years ago, we together decided to elevate China-Poland ties to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Under our strategic guidance, China-Poland exchanges and cooperation in various fields have expanded and deepened in an all-round way.
The meeting also served as an opportunity to touch on the sensitive issues of the war in Ukraine. President Duda has outlined what he believes China can do to help bring an end to the conflict started by Russia.
I spoke about the threats that we as Poland perceive and explained our point of view. I also mentioned the importance of peace and my hope that China, as a world power and a member of the UN Security Council, will support the pursuit of peaceful end to the war started by Russia.
President Duda also advocated for investing in Poland at the World Economic Forum in Dalian. He assured that Poland was a stable and promising choice for foreign capital and investment, highlighting Poland's success in GDP growth and real per capita income in recent years. While at first glance Duda's visit appears to be a success, experts say the agreements signed are largely symbolic. A lengthy state visit to China amid rising tensions in Sino-Western relations is also a potential thorn in Polish relations with Brussels and Washington.
So, Agaton, Agnieszka says she's a bit embarrassed, really. She's got mixed feelings about the visit. People on, as we just heard, are saying basically agreements were symbolic. Where do you stand on this visit?
2 points. One is general thoughts. I don't agree with this tourist operator comment because it's quite success. I traveled to China as a tourist once, and it's quite embarrassing to receive Chinese visa. It was a very complicated process, so I'm very happy that it will be. It won't be necessary next time to go over. We may go over without visa. It's quite easy.
Right. So 15 days visa-free travel has now been agreed for Poles visiting China.
Yeah, it's quite important step because China is a beautiful country for tourists. But something minor on that. The most important thing that Poland has its own channel of talking to one of the most important leaders in the world. President Duda built his own channels of communication with Joe Biden. He built his own channels of communication with Xi Jinping. I think it's a unique position in the world to be able to communicate with the most important leaders of our present world, and I think it's very important. I think 90% of world leaders dream about being able to talk to Xi Jinping in 4 eyes for over 3 hours. And on Monday, this meeting took so long. I don't think it's only symbolic gestures if they have topics to talk about for over 3 hours. The whole visit they spent together with in other format nearly half a day. So I think it's very important message about the role of Poland in this international scene. That's one thing. And second thing, it hardly happens. It's only domestic thing, but I would like to underline it. It hardly happens, but when after this meeting next day, Prime Minister Tusk had his press conference and he congratulated President Duda for this meeting, for his conversation with Xi Jinping, underlining that everything was agreed with the government. It really hardly happens in Polish politics when big palace and smaller palace are able to agree anything.
Right.
They did in that context, and I'm very happy that we are able, as a Polish, Poland, that Polish leaders are able to agree common sentences on important issues, like
especially foreign policy issues.
In foreign policy, it's one thing, but in general terms, looking at Polish scene, polarizing Polish scene, this polarization doesn't take place in this subject, and I'm very happy of it.
Right. So, as you've just heard, Dmitry, I mean, Agaton's very happy. He sees this as really quite a constructive step forward for Poland. One of the things, as we know, that was discussed between the two leaders was President Xi exerting some influence on Russia, on President Putin, in terms of their support for the war in Ukraine. Do you think that President Xi will actually, as a result of this trip, do anything differently to what he's been doing so far?
I think it's very important for security as this visit, especially in this region. And I think Duda spoke with a leader of China about situation in Ukraine and also on the border between Poland and Belarus. I think it's difficult to do something on Ukraine, but it's more easy for him to change Belarus policy. Probably Putin's also influence to situation on migration crisis on the border between Belarus and Poland. And I think it's very important for change situation. What happened now on the border? Because if we compare China and Belarus and China and Poland relations, in 10 times trade with Poland and China more than Belarus and Belarus and China. And I think for China, Poland is more important country than Belarus, and that is why Lukashenko, after Duda back to Poland, Lukashenko change Minister of Foreign Affairs because he's now afraid of position of China and position of Poland government because I believe that is now Poland sent ultimatum to Lukashenko because position of Sikorski and position of Duda about migration crisis, and they discuss about probably to close the border. And
Right.
Lukashenko now afraid of the situation, and it's very important for China that relations between Euro Union and China must be safety. They must have safety road due to connection between Poland and China via Belarus. That is important for Lukashenko to receive money.
Right. Okay. So Lukashenko's in a bit of a tricky situation, apparently, Agnieszka, and that's why he's changed his Minister for Foreign Affairs. But I also want to ask you. Yes, of course, I'd like your comments on that. But I'd also like to ask you about, how much influence you think President Xi has on Putin, and if he does have any, whether he's prepared to exert it.
Well, we were seeing this for last 2 years, that he's not really going to, show any form of patronizing influence against Russia, because it's not in his interest. He doesn't want Russia to be diminished so much. So he wants Russia to become some kind of client state
Right.
toward China, but not obviously. It's a very fine-tuned game.
So
I
how would
think.
that work? How would Russia become a client state? If she doesn't influence or attempt to influence Putin, what's the dynamics as you see it?
I've got the impression that China is the last country from these big power countries, this power organization, also like who's talking with Russia, who's
Right.
collaborating with Russia. So Russia is somehow, China is the last thing that Russia has in this, in the World's Fair. But I think China somehow respects Russia, which is different than what we are doing in the collective West. And I think it is important. And I think when the war will be ending and when there will be some kind of peace agreement, it will be with China, because China is the last power who is ready to be in contact with both sides. So I think it's very important.
Yes, but I mean, you see, China is importing a lot of cheap oil from Russia. At the same time, Russia is receiving. China says that the exports that it sends to China are for non-military use, but many intelligence reports say that actually they're for dual-purpose use. So there is this dynamic going on between them, which would suggest that China does have an influence. I mean, China's a big customer of Russia's. China's a big supplier to Russia. Do you think, Agaton, that China is prepared to influence Putin?
There's a famous Chinese saying that the best position is to sit on the bank of the river and see the corpse of your enemies flowing down this river. And this war is for China, sorry to saying that in this cynical way, but politics in a way is always cynical, so we must use such a language to describe it properly. China is in that position. Whatever is the outcome of the war, China is winning. They have everybody in Ukraine, Europeans, Americans, Russians. Whatever is the outcome, truce, peace, one side winning, whoever is winning, China will only witness that and may start talking to the winner in a new perspective, trying to organize new world order after this war. What is the present Chinese situation? That is why everybody is interested in talking with a Chinese leader to be able to create some possible scenarios after the war, and that is why it's good opportunity for Poland that Polish leader is among these players creating these scenarios.
So China's waiting for the outcome
definitely
to pick up the pieces.
But of course, they are not neutral. They are not big Switzerland.
Right.
They are China, and they are playing their own games. On one hand, they are helping Russia, heavily sending their armors directly or via North Korea. North Korea is the most important country helping Russia with ammunition, for instance.
Right.
We all know North Korea doesn't exist without Chinese influence, Chinese help. So it's a clear link. But on the other hand, we all remember and we hope that it works. These red lines drawn by Xi Jinping to Russia, especially about the use of nuclear armor.
Right.
She said you cannot use it. And we heard nothing about it. Russia sometimes threatening of using it, but we all know it's empty threats. That is very important influence of China on this conflict. But definitely they are waiting and preparing for next chapter of this conflict.
See what happens.
Of the changes in the world on the world scene.
Right. Well, actually, Dmitry, I just want to share this with you. President Duda spoke in China, saying that he linked economic prosperity, peace, and inviolability of national borders in what appeared to be a veiled reference to the Ukraine conflict. So it's not as though he held back from saying, excuse me, but national borders are being violated. Do you think there might have been another subtext, and that might be interpreted to mean China threatening Taiwan's borders?
So I think Taiwan's border is a problem of China. I think it's not a problem of Poland government, because in so case, if you wanna and planning to create a strategic dialogue, you cannot go to a sphere of influence of China in Taiwan, especially. I think China will play big role on Ukraine after war. Mm-hmm. Because China will probably one of the country who will take part on reconstruction or rebuilding Ukraine, technologies, some equipment, finance, etc. Probably it will be because China now one of the beneficiary of this war, probably.
Right.
And as we discuss about the situation on the border, I think now China have real instrument how to press to Putin and Lukashenko, how to stop influence Belarus to war on Ukraine. It's very important, I think, now for security in Europe. And I just wanted to thank personally to Mr. Sikorsky, because we long period, last month, we sent a lot of materials, and we collect a lot of signatures from the people from the world to send ultimatum from Poland to Belarus to stop repressions in Belarus, to release political prisoners, and also about situation immigration crisis. And as I understood, this case was discussed between Duda and President of China, and this is very important for security here in the region. And I think this communication between Belarus and China is now not so hard that Poland will have between China and Poland and Europe, because Poland is very important for China as a door to Euro Union. It's also very important. And my idea is also that for future, here in the Euro Union, in schools and universities, nobody study China literature, China history. Not enough. I think it's very important if countries planning to build a new strategy dialogue. It's very important to analyze, to study culture and literature of the country.
Yeah, I think more and more universities and so on are offering Chinese studies, but
one of the outcome of this visit is common Chinese-Polish dictionary. It will be created.
Yes.
Okay, well there we go. There's a start.
It's really very important.
Yeah, sure.
Nobody
What about the other way around, Agnieszka? We've heard about why Poland went, why President Duda went to China, but what's in it for China?
Well, I think China. Well, I think it's not my thinking. It's the fact. China is playing the long game. Yes, they have a completely different way of seeing things and seeing development and seeing politics that we have in the so-called collective West. So I think China is building some kind of small ports in Europe and in the West. But let's be sober. We have no influence over China. It's like being a fly.
Okay, but the risk is that they'll have too much influence over Poland and other European countries. I mean, President Xi just visited Hungary and Serbia and France. He doesn't do that very often. Why this great interest, do you think, in Europe at the moment?
I would say it's because this long game that he wants to be seen as the person to go to when we are talking about end of the war in Ukraine, because it's the thing that we have on our mind now. I don't think for China is such a big deal, but for Europe, of course, the biggest international problem now. And I think also that, well, China did say if the Taiwan was to announce the independence, the China will attack Taiwan. It said it's not something we weren't. They did not tell. So I think
they were certain about it.
So I think China wants to tell us to not support this political ambition in Taiwan, because I don't think China has a keen interest in invading Taiwan. I think China just wants to be to think stay like they are now.
Yeah.
Because they're not looking for a military conflict.
I mean, they're being quite belligerent, aren't they, China? I mean, they're having military exercises very close to the Taiwanese border and having jets fly over. But I do want to move on a little bit. I mean, Agnieszka says, well, actually, Poland's not that important to China. But I would suggest, perhaps, that the Belt and Road Initiative, which is, of course, a key project for the Chinese government, Poland's cooperation, as well as the cooperation of other countries in Europe, is vital. Agaton, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely it's vital, and I don't agree with Agnieszka that China is interested in this status quo position. Definitely, I agree. They play a long game, but at the end of the road, they have clear plan. Replace Pax Americana with Pax Sinica. It's this famous Graham Allison metaphor about Thucydides, a trap. But rising power will always clash with present power, and that is why we are going towards this big clash between China and the United States. And the question is, what will be the level playing field for this clash? It will be only economic, it will be political, or it will become military. We are talking about in military terms. That is why the most important thing is Taiwan and all this power play around Taiwan. I don't agree with you, because you said that it's not these conflicts are separated, Ukraine and Taiwan. I don't think so. I'm very afraid that Ukraine losing to Russia means China will try to use this situation to go for Taiwan. But what we all agree, as I understand, Taiwan is not as important.
Right.
Taiwan is at the end of the road. Okay. When Pax Sinica replaces Pax Americana, and when it happens, and what's the power play, what is the conception of Xi Jinping,
Yeah.
the Taiwan will be a kind of symbol. We regain the world. The world is ours, but it's why we can take Taiwan
Understood.
without any problem.
I want to come back to Taiwan perhaps later if we have time, but right now I'd like to talk about Prime Minister Tusk's confirmation of the mega transportation project that's been approved. It was started by the previous government. There have been some changes made to the plans and so on. And Prime Minister Tusk says that basically it's going to go ahead, and basically it consists of a network of road and rail and so on across Poland, connecting Poland to other countries, and which perhaps is a very useful connection for President Xi Jinping as part of his Belt and Road Initiative. Before we get into that, we have a short video I'd like to share.
Until this week, it was unclear whether the current government would press ahead with plans to build a major airport hub at Baranów and the accompanying rail infrastructure. The project was reviewed after Poland's State Audit Office warned last year that it lacked full economic justification.
We will build a modern airport according to this scale. It will be the most modern airport in Europe, and it will, of course, be connected not only by high-speed rail. This rail line, which will connect Łódź and Warsaw, among others. But we have also decided to expand the motorway not only between Warsaw and the central airport, but on a longer stretch between Warsaw and Łódź.
The current cost of the project is estimated at 131 billion zloty, or about 30 billion euro. To cut costs, the centralized rail system to the airport has been scrapped in favor of a more decentralized plan to connect Poland's major cities with high-speed trains. The Y-shaped high-speed rail line running through the new airport and faster connections between Poland's largest cities are to be given priority. They've replaced the previous proposal to link the main directions in one place, Baranów.
We're talking about connecting all the cities with high-speed rail, and that would be the most major investments in the high-speed rails rather than the airport itself.
The government justifies the importance of the project by citing capacity issues at Poland's largest air hub, Warsaw-Chopin Airport. Expanded to its maximum capacity, the airport can handle 20 million passengers a year. The CPK, on the other hand, would serve 34 million travelers annually. When completed in 2032, the Baranów hub will take over commercial traffic from Warsaw-Chopin Airport. Poland's Prime Minister has hailed the initiative as a triple leap into the future. The three elements are the development of high-speed rail, regional airports, and Poland's national carrier, LOT, which would expand its fleet to 135 aircrafts.
We want LOT Polish Airlines to be prepared to run at least 50%, we assume 60%, of the flights operating out of this airport. This number is a necessary minimum for LOT Polish Airlines to be one of the most important, in fact the most important player at such a hub airport.
The Central Transport Hub was the flagship project of the previous Law and Justice government, which announced the plans back in 2017. Donald Tusk's new plan for the airport has drawn some criticism from former officials.
To sum up, this does not look like a coherent, well-thought-out program, but a record of some brainstorming session under the slogan, "Give us some ideas on what to change so that it doesn't turn out that Law and Justice had planned it well."
The new project, while in the same location, differs significantly from the old version. It will be much smaller, the high-speed rail connections will be laid out differently, and it does not explicitly plan to close Chopin Airport to passenger flights. The completion date has also been moved from 2028 to 2032.
Quite impressive, I think. An enormous investment for Poland. Now, I suppose some of the economic benefits are obvious. What are your thoughts in terms of other implications of having this sophisticated hub interconnected in Poland? What does it mean in terms of Poland's role and position internationally?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic project. Probably it will have a big effect for international, like in Istanbul, now in Turkey was a airport open a few years ago.
Yep.
And probably Poland, due to location geographical in Europe, it's a real good idea to open this airport in one hand. Another hand, it's my view, it's also for important to open and create small airports in some cities in Poland, because these airports must be comfortable for people who live in here, because
Sure.
if this airports, Centralny Port Komunikacyjny, will be only one biggest, and it will be...
Yes, but there's a train network and a road network as well.
You will pay a lot of hours, for example, for go with this airport. For example, from Warsaw to this place, probably 1 hour. I don't know how long it will be.
But with high-speed rail connections, road connections.
Yes, but sometimes if you're using car or etc., it's another case.
Yeah. So, Agnieszka, I mean, what your thoughts? I mean, on the face of it, sounds like a good idea.
Okay, but well, if he really wants to build it, or it's just a publicity stunt, I think the jury is still out on this one.
Why do you say that?
Because, well, it's just what the polls there said. Because when PiS was talking about this, the polls were negative, and now the Polish people, majority of Polish people want it to be built. So he promised to build it, and I'm not really sure he's going to. For me, the most important part of this is why high-speed connection, rail connection, he promised to build, but it was his government back in 2011 who killed this project.
2012.
11 years.
Started it in 2009 and they killed it in 2012.
And they killed it for no apparent reason. I think it's very important. There was a time in Poland after 1999 when for 1 zloty spent on railways, 10 zloty was spent on on roads generally.
Yeah.
So it was very, in my opinion, very bad proportion. And I'm very happy that we are investing in the public transport, in the rail transport, because it's very important. And it was a political thing, I think. Well, people wanted to have, I have my own car, I'm not going to use public transport, it's a capitalistic heaven. And now we are trying to change this tide and build something. We really need a modern high-speed railway, and we need it cheap, because it's really very, now this high-speed train are very simply expensive.
Yes.
If you want to take your 4-person family for a weekend for the sea, you have to pay around 1,000 zloty.
Right.
So we are going by car because it's much cheaper. So we really need to rethink all this concept of public transport.
So cutting down the unit costs of travel for individuals, but also commercially speaking.
Yes, that's true.
Agnieszka, what impact do you think this is going to have? As we see on the map that's come up, perhaps we don't see it now, maybe it can come up again. But it's not just within Poland, it's also, with surrounding countries.
Generally speaking, Poland, and what is the core idea of this trimarium concept proposed by previous government, to creating links. Right now, Europe is dominated by links from east to west, from west to east. So whatever we will change, it's railway connections, highway connections, energy connections, east to west, nothing, nearly nothing from west, from north to south. Yeah. To give you an example, the train from Warsaw to Berlin goes below 6 hours. Train from Warsaw to Budapest, it's not a much longer road, it takes 18 hours. What is the one point? That is why it's so important to invest heavily in communication in our region. It's when you see the map, you just just publish this map. It's very clear to notice where was the Berlin Wall, which part of the world was expanding heavily in the second part of the 20th century, which part of the Europe wasn't, and Central Europe is definitely this time. So CPK, the logic of CPK was to do something with this white dot on the communication map of Europe, and I'm very happy that Donald Tusk, after a lot of he spent half a year to decide what to do. I'm very happy that he decided to go on with this project, because this project is very important.
You believe it?
Yeah, because right now he started it. He's a hostage of his own propaganda. When Tusk and his party was in the opposition, they were attacking law and justice all the time. What are you doing with the CPK? Nothing is going on there. It's only green grass, nothing more, and you are taking money for keeping this green grass and doing nothing. Right now, all these words will come back to them if they do nothing.
Well,
we
as
all know,
Agnieszka
Tusk
says, this
I
is
will
like,
do it.
yeah.
So in 3-4 months, there will be questions. What are you doing? Why do you have still only green grass there? Nothing happened. And they will have to answer on these attacks, because these attacks will be very deeply grounded, rooted in Polish opinion polls, opinion ideas, because they were built there by Civic Platform as an opposition party. So when he said, "I will do it," he is hostage of his own end, and he must do it. Otherwise, it will be very complicated in political terms for him to stop it.
He loses credibility. Dmitry, what are your views? What, apart from the economic, any other benefits, advantages for this CPK?
Yeah,
office?
I think yes, especially for tourists. For example, from China, tourists from another locations probably, yes. But I agree with colleague because I think it's very important to build high-speed communication lines between cities, especially not only in Poland. It's very important because look, in China now technologies, high-speed railways connections, it's probably 500 kilometers per hour.
Right.
And it's use technology from China. It's easy, and probably it's also in Japan and other France also, Spain, and I think it's also very important to build lines from north to south. For example, to Greece.
Yeah.
There no any communication. You cannot travel from Warsaw to Greece by train. Yeah, probably yes, but you spend
It will take 3 days. Yeah.
yeah, 2-3 days.
Right.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
But if we spoken about future, it's very important to invest for this. It's very important, and I'm optimistic. I believe that in near future Belarus will be not under Lukashenko regime, and I hope it will be also speed connection between Minsk and Warsaw,
Right.
high speed
Right.
railway. I hope it will be. But as we mentioned about this port, I think it's important also to analyzing effect due to economic effect and analyzing what happened with airlines, with some technologies near future, because now the biggest market for any air flights, it's US market. In small cities, small towns, it's a lot of airports.
Yeah.
Not so like
able
in
to
here.
send planes to the United States.
Yeah.
So
Well,
not a big
like in
hub,
Europe.
and what is the core idea of the CPK project? It will become a big hub, international hub, connections between Belarus, between Armenia, between Georgia, with the United States. They fly from Tbilisi, for instance, to Warsaw, and from Warsaw to New York.
Right.
And other countries.
So geographically, that makes sense,
yeah,
right?
That concept was created before the war. Famous Polish professor Tadeusz Romer, he created this core idea of using Poland as a platform for international traveling, for international communication. This idea was repeated so many times that it's hard to believe that it's 2024. 100 years after Romer wrote his words about this communication platform, and we are still discussing, do we need it or not? It should be done. It was Donald Tusk, and I think I agree with Agnieszka, it's his big mistake. He created great plans of creating such a platform. It wasn't only high-speed train, it was also a big central airport close to Warsaw. These plans were abandoned. They were taken by next government, Law and Justice government, but it took them so much time. They lost so many times. This, as you just quoted, CPK is the concept from 2017. It should be concept from the 2015 on high speed to realize it.
Right.
We are still losing time for a concept which is so well discussed, so well prepared in intellectual terms.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Not unusual though, as governments change and so on, and political games come into play. But Agnieszka, I'd like your thoughts on going back now to the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. Is this part of perhaps what China wants in return from Poland? Allowing visa-free travel, 15 days, more, imports of Polish agriculture and food and so on. As you say, China is playing the long game, and we know that BRI is critically important to Xi. Is this his quid pro quo? Is this his payment?
You mean the payment of Donald Tusk to China?
Yes.
No, I wouldn't think so. I think, well, the China is going to build it, whatever.
Well, I mean, the agreement to connect Belt and Road.
Yes,
to CPK.
But when China announced this Belt and Road Initiative, they didn't actually ask the countries, do you want to be part of it? They just announced that we are going to build this thing, and nobody said no, including Poland. It was during Tusk, I think. But I think what's important to understand about China is not trying to export ideology, what Americans are doing. China is not trying to convert everyone to Chinese. It's the word that Professor Kolotko, very, very wise and Polish intellectual economist, created Chinism. This system, which is in communist and which is in capitalist, is something that China created. China is not trying to put all world to follow its lead. China is just looking for its own business interest, and China is especially looking, the government of China is looking to persuade their people that it's good to be in this system, because, well, there is like 1.5 billion people in China and only 90 million in the Communist Party. So if they want to make a revolution, they can do it. They just have to see that the life is getting better. So I think we are just a small part of this big Chinese project, and but I think it's good for Poland, and we have to accept this, and we have to want to be part of this, without trying to teach China our values.
Okay.
Which was done for years by Western politicians.
Right. Okay. So basically, China is not trying to export its political ideology. It's simply investing for economic reasons.
I don't completely agree. Economy in such systems, as Chinese system, like Russian system, to some extent even German system, economy is strictly connected with the politics. Economy is one of the tools to achieve political goals, and I don't believe that it's only for making business. It's also for making politics. And what I said earlier, at the end of the plan of Xi Jinping, this long plan that he's realizing is creating a kind of Pax Sinica all over the world. The world in a Chinese order, in the Chinese Chinese, and definitely not without the domination of the United States. Apart from CPK, because CPK is quite flexible, whatever the outcome, if we have such an airport connected with high-speed trains and it's this big cargo hub, we may use it for different reasons. We may take export from the United States, we may take export from China, we may import some stuffs from Belarus, from Ukraine to other parts of the world. It will be very flexible because it's only a platform. We can use this platform as we wish to. That's one thing. But second thing, what I am very upsetting, we started with the conversation of Andrzej Duda, which I'm very good it happened, but we are during European Championships. Have you noticed all these posters on the stadiums with all these advertisements of electric Chinese cars there? How could it happen that in the heart of European motor industry, Chinese firms are able to advertise its own cars, which are in common in obvious competition with German cars.
It's a free market, okay?
It's not free market. It's it's the clear consequence. If the clear consequence of all these trips of Olaf Scholz to Beijing, or his meeting with Xi Jinping, and what is the play of Chinese leaders? They are playing. They are meeting France. They are meeting Germans. They are meeting Polish leaders and playing against each other. But what is the problem of Europe? Unfortunately, we don't see it as a problem. We are not looking for common denominator against China.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. As always, just as things become more and more interesting in our conversation, thank you all for joining us and sharing your insights with our audience. Have a good rest of Sunday.
I'm going to work.
Going to work? So nice. We have that in common. Well, that's all from us on this edition of Press Corner, but as always, we have lots more coming up, so don't go away. Goodbye.